Usually I say
3, 5, 4,
4, 3, 2,
2, 1.
It's a Sunday, and it's live chat. And welcome to our special guest, Skinner. Skinner,
Hello.
Thanks for joining me today.
Of course. Yeah, my pleasure. It's an honor, of course.
It is an honor for me as well. I'm a huge fan, and what a great guy to spend this Sunday with. You know, it's kind of sad because we would have been seeing each other probably during DCOM at this time.
Right. This is designer con time. I know. I'd have seen you walking around, checking it out. That it's kind of the only convention I really like going to anymore anyway. So yeah.
It kind of got like weird this year where now, they got to do it online.
Yeah.
Everyone's back online shopping from.
It's not like the ideal way of experiencing this stuff at all. It's trippy because like I love to go to DesignerCon just to walk around, just to like see people, and I don't actually like the obligation of having a table because then you're kind of stuck there, So I love to walk around and just see everybody at like different places in their lives, like with their toys and making stuff. And there's so many like random, I don't know, like you could tell it's somebody's just started doing something, and it kind of hits me in my heart where I'm like, oh, this is so cool. It's like a special time in this person's life where they're just starting this thing, or they're kind of like trying to figure it out or something. So I'm kind of a connoisseur of those people more, where I'm like looking around like, oh, who's kind of like.
I think that I might fit into that situation, being that I've only, made one toy, and that was kind of like almost by accident. So I kind of see myself when I'm around you guys as a beginner, and you guys have been super. Everybody has been so warm and friendly, and in that environment, it's kind of been amazing.
How did you wait? What do you mean? You just that toy? You just did that on accident? What happened? I know that you go to Japan a lot and you love all that.
Okay, well, funny story to my toy, Basil. So I got face cancer. It's a funny story.
Right.
Too. I got face cancer like pretty severely about 4 years ago. And I went for an operation one day, and I thought they were just going to take it off and I'd be back. We actually had lunch plans for that day. So when it didn't turn into that, it turned into some 10-hour surgery. Whoa. And then I came out with my entire face kind of like disfigured, and like I looked like a literal monster. I could make people cry if a child saw me.
Oh man.
Yeah, they would start crying. But like the good thing is that I had a great doctors and great care, but they put me on Norcos. And so, what was nice about it is that I wasn't feeling any pain. And I think Paul Kaiju had inspired me earlier on to say, hey, just pick up some clay sometime and form something with tinfoil and put some clay around it and start making a shape and start thinking about, appendages and like how arms connect and stuff. And so somehow my mind, instead of thinking about my face, just started getting into sculpting, and that's how it came about. And I really don't even know how it would have come about otherwise, other than that, because you don't really have the time.
Right.
In that certain situation, I found myself like 20 hours later, I had worked on an arm.
So you were like losing yourself in it, kind of. Yeah, you were just sort of like, oh, I'm just making this thing. Do you feel like there's any kind of process style similarity between sculpting and then like how you make music and stuff? Like where you're just sort of in it and you get into that weird flow state where you forget you're alive and you're just like making. Is it similar at all?
I found it to be very difficult and challenging in the sense that, now when I look at the other people's sculpts and details, I just can't believe some of the things that people are accomplishing, including the works that you've made that have been transferred into. So,
well, what's funny is that I've sculpted before, and I'm like, I think like as a sort of self-conscious individual, I'm hyper aware of my shortcomings. So I'm like, this is never going to be as good as I want it to be or whatever. And so the things that I've sculpted before, yeah, there's no way I could like, that is like, I'm just like, I just do the drawing and I go, all right, could somebody make this drawing look better?
This thing is so amazing, man.
I know, it's kind of like the craziest thing I've ever made.
Look at that, it's the guy inside the mouth there.
Yeah, you know what was funny was so Dan from Unbox, he hit me up this was years ago, and he goes, hey, do you want to make something? I go, yeah. And then I had a bunch of drawings and I sent him like 4 different drawings of stuff, and then he picked that one, which was like the most complex, insane kind of occult, esoteric design, and very Lovecraftian and horror and weird. And then I said, okay, if you're sure. And then I started getting all the updates on the sculpt, and it became crazier and crazier and crazy. I couldn't believe it. And he goes, yeah, actually I sent the digital sculpt to the factory, and because like I guess they are like having sort of proto superstitious like fear of around it, like around the toy. They were like, we don't want to make that. Like I guess Dan was like, he's like, no, it's okay. And they're like, no, we don't want to make it. It's a thing of evil or whatever. And I was like, no, and then Dan's like, no, it's okay. And then they go, oh, also it's going to be 25 different parts and molds and stuff. And they were like, we don't want to do it. And he goes, come on, man, let's do it. And the funny thing is that
so articulated it.
There's so many pieces. So Dan said that that when it was done, that the factory was so like couldn't believe they had kind of done this, because that like Unbox had sort of been starting around that time. Like they weren't, like, I think they had done some cool stuff with Konami and Nintendo and stuff, but they had never done anything like this involved. And he said that it kind of like put them on the map in a way as toy makers, that like they could do this, and everybody's like, oh my God, okay. So I felt bad, because anytime anybody gets involved with me, I'm always like trying to push it into a different area, like more and more. And but I also, Dan from Unbox is a saint of a person, and
the double thumbs up for Dan as well.
Oh,
just because. Very quick interjection here. When my piece finally left here and went to Japan, it unfortunately got burnt down in the Luke fire.
No.
Yeah, so I lost it. And so out of the blue came Dan, and he said, "Man, if you've got pictures of it, we can recreate it." And so Dan recreated it.
Really? I had no idea. That's incredible.
Yeah. Thanks to Dan and Goran from Unbox. Those guys
what kind of person does that? Like
a sweetheart.
The best.
Dan is
absolute
the best, and I've always been thankful. Is actually always so helpful and positive, and I love to support with those guys, because we'll meet up with the Japanese Unbox crew when we're in Japan, and it's like,
oh yeah,
it's like great company.
Wait, can I ask you, when did you like, because I'm assuming since you were in Skinny Puppy and you were touring Japan, you were touring everywhere. Is that like, were you into kaiju, like Godzilla films and toys before that? Like, was it just sort of like something you'd kind of see around and be all, what's this? Like, how did you get into this stuff?
Yeah, I actually, my dad sent me to Japan when I was a kid, when I was 17, and went on the youth exchange program where I had to live for the summer in Japan. And that was in 1978, Showa era. So it was like different style of Japan. It was really good for me though. It totally changed my life. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, I was exposed to, at that time, just like, of course, Godzilla and Mothra and like the typical Gamera.
I
didn't really get into collecting so much stuff. I do have an original 1980 talking Godzilla doll. It's about 2 feet tall over there, but
Awesome.
that I bought from them. But oddly, it was my friend Naive Estefan, who was living here for quite some time, that I went over to his house to see at a studio, and all of a sudden, all the kaiju that he had, the Sofubi, had like dominated the studio to the point where you couldn't really even see the equipment anymore. It was just covered with all these things. And I was like, what is this? And he goes, Kevin, you need to meet this guy. And he got on the phone and handed me the phone. And I'm like, hi. And it was Paul Kogan. And,
oh my God, amazing.
The best friends ever. And
Paul's the
sure
best.
enough, he knew it. And Paul and I hit it off. And we've been friends ever since. And of course, you know, when you meet that crew, it's only a matter of time before you know the whole thing sinks in about what's going on. Actually,
right, you kind of see the underground. You see the like, you know. Oh, look at that! I was so excited. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that you were there. I was so excited.
I think this is 2014, so that's like right after I met Paul, and I went to visit Paul, and then I met you guys, and I met you, and I got your amazing book, and then we met again, and we were. This is where we played the Warfield.
Oh God, yeah, that was awesome.
And I think this was the same year. It was 2014. So you presented me with that lovely Crawlus and Gorgoth guy.
Yeah, dude.
As well.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that was a stellar time, man.
That was so cool, man. I remember being very excited because when I was in high school, I was all industrial music. Like I would go to this goth industrial club called the Amazon in Sacramento and smoke cloves, and I was like making this like totally nihilistic art, listening to Too Dark Park and listening to like you know, Wax Trax records stuff, and like you know, Revolting Cocks and Ministry and By God 20 and Front 242, all this shit. I was like fully in because I hated the small town I lived in, and I was like a really angry creative person who felt stifled by my environment. And it's interesting in the 90s where it's like I feel like Skinny Puppy was so avant-garde and strange, and like in a way that I really it's like I don't think people understand the profound kind of shit that you guys were doing. Like I like
weird back then.
There's a few, well, even now, like if you play that shit to somebody now, if I go, hey, young person, you think you like, you know, cool fringe shit, like listen to the first song on Too Dark Park and then just watch their brains melt, because there's a few albums in that I like where I will if I don't know somebody, I'll put on a certain album to kind of test them to see like just to see the reaction. Sometimes I'll put on Sketches of Spain by Miles Davis to see, because it gets really heavy and there's a lot of space and it's open and it will force you to think about heavy things and feel stuff. And then sometimes I'll put on Skinny Puppy and just like listen to that and just see how people react, and to watch people kind of physically their energy change while they're listening to this music. I'm like, that's exactly the effectiveness of this shit. It's insane. And then when I saw you guys at that show, the production, the projection, the whole experience, I was like, in a perfect world, you know, I'm like, this is the kind of band that would be like, you know, Justin Bieber level famous. Cause I'm like, this is a band that's doing true reflection of stuff, you know? So
actually, I'm not too sure if we played Sacramento too many times back in the day. I think maybe once in the Too Dark Park.
You wisely skipped it.
So what is it that you moved to Oakland, was it like an immediate connection with the Oakland that you felt like a new inspiration?
Well, I lived in Sacramento. I worked with people with developmental disabilities for like 10 years. And I saw that my coworkers were kind of like these like older artist people. And I kind of made the decision, like, either I'm going to work here forever or I'm going to try to be an artist for a living or something. So I kind of like done that. I built a house in Sacramento in this sort of shitty part of town, but it had a cool, big, giant art studio. But after a while, Sacramento started to feel like not a place where I just didn't feel like in rhythm with it anymore. I it's like a good boot camp. It's like nobody cares who you are, nobody cares what you're doing. And so you get really good at what you're doing, and then you make an escape, and there's a lot of bands and artists like that who are like, yeah, I'm from Chelsea Wolf is from Sacramento, Death Grips.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Cake, Deftones. Like there's a lot of, and I can't remember anything else, but there's a ton of it. Yeah. So I was like, and Christy, my wife, she's like, I don't want to live in Sacramento anymore. She was born and raised there, and we were taking care of her dad. He passed away, and then she's like, I want to live my life. I want to go. I want to do stuff. And so I said, all right, cool. She's like, I have a friend that lives in Oakland. We can move in there and start renting and then build, and so that's what happened. We just kind of moved there. And the coolest part about Oakland is that it has this sort of rich social justice culture like that is, and just a kind of a beautiful sort of vibe here where like nobody really cares what you're doing, but they're like positive and everybody's just sort of, there's like, I love it because I can like lift weights with my trans friends and fucking play basketball with people that are like Eritrean teenagers who are making fun of me the whole time. Like I want a expansive, complex existence. So Oakland just really provides that for me because I don't have to go far to be in community with people whose experiences are vastly different than mine, Yeah. It's cool.
It's pretty awesome that, you're kind of like a guy known to, as a story writer, an illustrator, a painter, you build stuff, you paint some toys, you make some toys, you make murals, you become like what I consider to be an actor that has yet to be reckoned with. Because dude, I am telling you, like Budfoot and like, okay, I got to talk about Budfoot and even drawing with Skinner for that matter.
Yeah, I should have had you on there. They were that company was like kind of hard to deal with. So I tried to get like more freaks on there. Yeah. And they were like, because there's like 19-year-old interns in the office there. And they're like, well, the interns think that a viral YouTube person would be good. And I'm like, what? Like, what? Like, why are they in charge of me? Like, and I would always say, you guys should get like a younger, better looking, cooler person,
it's so good.
No, but and then they were like, no, but we like you on here. And I'm like, well, then let me do my show.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, but I am trying to, I'm working with the director writer of Drawing with Skinner to try to create a new show.
The production value on it. Is that somebody you're continuing with, I hope?
Oh yeah. Well, I want it to be better. I want it to be like
it's like Evil Dead, only like with Skinner. I could see that it could go there.
That's what I want.
The new Ash, as far as I'm concerned, you could be the new Bruce Campbell.
Wow, dude, that's unbelievably. That's unbelievable. I can't believe
I'm just saying this. Please go to Skinner's site, theartofskinner.com, and check out the links to. Oh, you can see on YouTube too, right?
Yeah, Budfoot or. Budfoot, Drawing with Skinner. It's on YouTube.
I guarantee you will be fascinated by it. And not only that, Budfoot, film that you made with Wonder Goblin, James.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you're in the music industry, which is just, I think, maybe one of the most spiritually brutalizing industries like ever, like from what I can tell. Oh yeah. But like, have you ever just had like so many things go wrong and then you're just like kind of emotionally destitute, where you're like, okay, all my dreams are crumbling, everything that I've worked really hard for is falling apart, and everybody's flaking on me super hard, and I'm super depressed, so it makes it difficult to recognize if anything is good. And then you're just like, oh, this sucks. And then you have like one experience that reminds you that not everything is dog shit. That was Budfoot. That was Budfoot. I was like, oh dude, it was so I so first of all, I had known James. I kind of just was collaborating with James. He just seemed like a cool, weird freak. And honestly, James makes cool toys, but if you've ever seen his paintings, they're very, very, very fucking bizarre and intense. And they're like, he's creating a mythology about like forest spirits and sex and the occult and all this shit. It's really like, he's really an intense painter. So, and he's so good. But I had drawing with Skinner was quickly becoming like a very hard thing for me to navigate. I didn't feel understood or supported by Super Deluxe, but I think that the people there were kind of desperate to create like a hit. And I was like, well, this is going to be like a cult thing. This isn't going to be a hit, like you're going to have to get somebody else. And then I had like a virtual reality, Hollow Earth adventure thing I was working on with Google, totally fell apart. I had an anthology film I was working on fall apart. I had like everything that I had been working on for like a year and a half straight, like fell apart. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so depressed. And it was just compounding my already like inability to create serotonin in my mind. My brain was just like struggling. It was like ready to die. And then James hit me up and said, hey, do you want to be in this movie? And I guess they had like a real actor lined up who like quit to go do Broadway or something. Like they had like a real actor, and I was like, yeah, man, I'll do it. That sounds good. And then I got on the plane and I rewrote like all my dialogue for my character. I had all these changes and all this stuff, like, like a diva, of course. And I showed up and they were like, dude, these are great. We're rolling with it. We love your ideas, like whatever. And I felt for the first time in several years that my thoughts, my ideas, like where I was coming from, was appreciated and kind of like seen as valuable instead of like seen as inconvenient or something. And so it really saved me. Like I came back feeling like I know what I want. I know how I want to feel in my projects. I know how I want to feel. I know what I want to do. I know what, and so they didn't even realize it because they were grateful to have me kind of step in because they had like the actual real actor flake. and I was like, yeah, man, I'll do it. Let's fucking go. I love to yell and scream and shit.
What they call like a great fluke. That's like, those things that happen that's meant to be. And then from that point on, people can say, well, wait, why would you want somebody different than Skinner? That it's just, for me, I saw the trailer at first and I was just couldn't believe it. I felt like, how is this being done? And then
how is it? Like it was,
I don't know how you that.
The CGI,
the CGI is like top level. I mean, it's like,
I know
it's not just a B movie anymore when you start to get effects like that in it.
I know. I felt like almost a little embarrassed or something because I was like, because like sometimes you're like, I can't, but like, there's a part of me that wants so badly just to like shed any inhibitions. And then there's the part of me that's sort of a little self-judgy that's like, dude, who do you think you are? Like, you're just getting away with all this shit. Like, what do you do? You know, and it's hard to navigate all that because sometimes I'm like, am I just becoming an absolute parody of myself by like doing this? And then I realize like, there's no reason to care. Who cares? Just go, go. We're going to be dead soon. Just fucking have fun.
So just go, man. I mean, if you just look inside one of your books, it's like, it's just such a trip. I mean, it's a world of psychedelia that, I mean, what is it that exposed you to such a brilliant world of psychedelics? Was there an inspiration that took you down this path?
Well, I think sometimes you will do what you think you're supposed to do, and then you'll kind of stumble on something else. Like I remember, also, if you don't have the new book, I got to send it to you. I'll send you the new one.
And I love pop-up books, and you've got a new book, what, the Necronomicon?
Yeah, the Necronomicon pop-up. I can send you that one too, no problem. You see, I'll send you a bunch of cool stuff.
That's all in shopcriticalhit.com, or is that at a different place?
Yeah. It's at there. It's at necronomiconpopup.com and Shop Critical Hit. But you can, if you go to the artofskinner.com, all of it, you'll see all of it. But a
ton of links on that. Great links too.
Yeah, great, a lot of great links to things. But
lots of entertainment.
Lots of commercials for Adult Swim and Fender and weird stuff. But so I think like what happened was I got exposed to like 70s fantasy stuff like late. You know, I was like, oh shit. I remember the first time when my dad was like, oh, my son is gravitating towards dinosaurs. And then I was like, oh, dinosaurs, dragons, fantasy, monsters, creatures, things like horror, you know, all it just kind of rolled, steamrolled. And then I remember in Playboy magazine, there was a vodka advertisement where there was this woman with a sword like on a polar bear. And I was like, oh my God, this is it, man. This is the stuff. And I was like, I know what my life is going to be from now on. So it was cool. But then I started to get into like, I started to see like color patterns too, because some of my family is from Arizona. And so they had like all these weird pillows that had Kachina dolls on them and like rugs from Mexico and shit. Like if you look at a lot of Mexican folk art and Mexican rugs and all this stuff, like you start to see that there's no way that psychedelics didn't kind of impact the aesthetic of their stuff, you know, like their rugs. So I kind of just took whatever I could in my little tiny white trash brain that was like trying to put stuff together and figure things out, you know? So I was like, oh, this is cool. And then, I mean, of course, if you look at like Dungeons and Dragons, right. a lot of like what I would consider to be artwork that is like blue collar art, like comic books, horror magazines, fantasy stuff, creepy, eerie, you know, Mars Attacks, all this stuff. Because it's the only thing you have access to when you're just like a kid. You know, you're like, oh, cool, like weird, you know, like Big Daddy Roth stuff or whatever. So, and then I just went deep into like horror and folk tales and, you know, weird horror, like Lovecraftian stuff, Clark Ashton Smith, you know, and it's just kind of expanding and growing and contracting. And like recently I started working on this comic book called Skin Crawl Magazine. And it's an anthology.
The horror story anthology that you're working on? And I've been following it. It is so killer.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. I got 5 stories in there. And ironically, oh yeah, we could see a little bit. I don't know. So
do you see that?
Oh yeah, there's a page. So this is the black and white version. But so oh yeah, there's the king when he realizes his life is fucked. Yep. Oh yeah. So I had like a lot of stories that I've been writing over the years because I wanted to make like music video. I was like, okay, I want to make films. So why don't I?
I mean, a storyboard can never get better than that.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, so what I decided to do was, what if I just take my ideas that were going to be music videos or short films and then just make them comics, and then I'll have the comic, and then I could just hand it over to the record executive or the, you know, the person, you know, with the pistol sitting next to the safe with all the money in it. And I could be like, hey, look, you should let me make this, you know? So that's kind of like where that is. But the funny thing is that I have like 20 story ideas. Like I have like the next 5 issues of this all written out, and I could just make it.
Great, man. I love that style that you have. And then one thing I'm always amazed is how fluid it all paints out on the page. And it's just like, those are the type of comics I used to like. I can't say I can remember specifically the names of which ones which drew me in the most, but like it's your style that it's definitely like winning in that sense.
Thank you.
I love watching you draw. That's why I'm glad that we're able to sit here and actually kind of check out how you how you work. I mean, if you're watching drawing with Skinner is awesome because you kind of get a clue as to how you approach things. And then, say for instance, when somebody sort of approaches drawing from the other angle, like drawing the thing out first and then coloring it in, you seem to get the most out of your imagination by like sort of like shading out these areas and then going in with the detail, and then these things just come out like a dream. They just pop out. Is that something that you got blown away by early in life that you said, wow, what is this world that I'm conjuring?
Yeah, I mean, I remember like I had kind of a love for drawing, but like, you know, when you're a little kid, you're kind of trying to make it look like the thing that you want, but it never ends up that way. And there's a lot of artists who are really, really good at that sort of skillful rendering and making things look real, you know, and like what they want it to look like. And I was too lazy to like really follow through with that because I was like kind of disenchanted with foundational illustration rules, you know? So I was like, man, I don't care about this shit. I just want to draw a little monster head, you know, a little Satan head or whatever. And so, but what happens is over time, your reverence for the actual skill kind of grows. So now I'm like, okay, if I'm going to draw comics, then I have to draw things to kind of look like a car or a person or like this, you know, like all this shit that I don't really care about drawing. But what you do is you kind of develop this sort of reverence for it. And it makes the, like, so when I draw, like, say a carriage, like a creepy carriage, you know, with a weird man driving the horse, pulling the carriage, that's really, really hard for me. But on the next page, I know I'm going to draw some ugly thing coming out of the ground. So I'm kind of like excited, you know, I'm like, oh, I know I'm going to have fun then. But I also, you like on this thing here, I kind of knew like, oh, I'll draw like a mutant skull thing. Like Night of the Living Dead or some shit like that. But like, I didn't put too many details because then what happens is, it's not as satisfying to like kind of make it look cool if you don't know. You're kind of like, all right, I'm practicing. So it's sort of like practicing on the tightrope where like, okay, if I had to, I know I could draw something without, or I know I could ink something without having to have it all planned out ahead of time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like keeping me a little bit sharp, but sometimes you can mess up pretty bad.
That's the thing. You don't seem to mess up very much. It's like, I never noticed it. Like your line work is the first thing that I always just notice is how your strokes and your lines are just, they're really good. And
thanks.
So
man.
that's where I would muffle. I would be like, that line you just put in just ruined that guy's face. But you bring out the depth of it or create this, you know, pro look that.
Yeah. Do you ever draw? Do you ever do any of this stuff?
Not like no. I'm gonna say no. I mean, I have, but it's been like just while you're sitting in the studio waiting and
Right.
or something, and you've got like the pen there, and you just start doing this. But
Yeah.
nothing ever really said to me, "Oh wow, I did something that I liked." It was always just like, "Here, take this or put this away." And then one day,
take this, put this away.
what's really funny is that I did draw one thing one time when I was on tour with the first band that I was in, which is a boat. I drew, believe it or not, a graveyard setting with a tombstone with a dog sitting on top. And then on the tombstone it said "Skinny Puppy." And
really,
and then so that disappeared. Well, it's not that I cared; I just doodled it. But the reason I found out about this is that years later, I went into the office of Network Records, and the president of Network had this thing framed on his wall.
Oh my God!
Oh wait, you were the monitor man on that tour. He goes, "Oh yeah, I just grabbed it."
Oh my God! And you're like, "Yeah, let me have it back, or let me get a scan."
I was okay with it, but there's a kind of strange story about Network, anyways, that I won't go into here. But
that's I mean, all these record labels are just bizarre. Like what? Like they must have gotten away with murder for so long until now, man. Just
don't even bring it up.
All right. But you know what? You know what's interesting now though is like watching hip hop artists kind of subvert a lot of this like record label stuff. Like I think it's interesting how like if you're just like some weird kid and you have a friend who knows who can make beats and stuff and you record it, like you can basically have like a hit. Like just now, like you kind of just are a rapper kid. You're like, yeah, man, I made a rap about how much I hate Mark Zuckerberg or something, and then like all of a sudden, like you made $1 million or something, it's like, it's crazy. It's really, really fascinating the way that the world has changed is because I think, so I'm 40, I'll be 43 in March. And so I remember like I was in bands for a long time. And before I even just
your band, now, don't you have a band, Ungolians?
Yeah, that was like, like a psychedelic doom type band, but we I don't know if this is you, but I was the band dad, and you know how every band has a band dad where it's like, do you know what I'm saying? Like the responsible one who's making it kind of
the band dad as well.
Yeah, I feel like you have band dad energy where it's like you're like, okay,
people
so
might not say that, but I think ultimately I think it's true.
Well, where it's like, I think if you're in a band that's not successful, it's like there's a little less interest in like not being totally high on methadone or whatever before practice, So I got kind of tired of like being the band dad because you kind of have to decide around, if you're like 30 years old or something, like, do I want to put a bunch of energy into my art, which has direct and obvious material returns? Or do I want to be in a band where I'm like constantly reminding the bass player to bring his chord? Like, don't forget your chords, So I just was like, nah, but I still make, music and stuff. I actually made like a weird dance album, a comedy album. I don't know.
Warriors?
Yeah. Did you hear that at all?
No. Tell me about it.
Well, it was a
dance project.
Yeah, it's like dance, just beats and singing, but it's all comedy. What happened was in 2010, I was having this show, a big giant art show, and I had worked on it for 6 months, and I was like basically like totally burnt out and depressed. And I saw this documentary about shark finning, and it just threw me into this like crushing depression that I was like not coming out of at all. And because it's like you basically see in a very obvious and real way that like the beauty of nature doesn't matter in the face of capitalism and like cultural stuff, where I'm just like, this sucks. Like, and so I kind of just started losing my mind. I was like crying all the time. Of course I have like chronic, like clinical depression, but, so I my wife was like, dude, you have to do something. Like, you are fucking tripping out. And this was like the conversation we have like every couple of months, where she's like, you're losing your mind. And so I said, all right, what's the opposite of thinking? And I thought dancing.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to do dance music. And what happened was, it turned into this like super comedic, bizarre practice of just getting together with my friend and Chris Fernandez and make dance music and laugh. And dude, it's pretty weird and funny, actually. And like, when I look back on it, I'm like, dude, this is funny, because if you listen to it, you go, oh, this is like just comedy bullshit, like some kids fucking around. But for me, it was like emotional survival to make this stuff.
I'm listening to it as soon as this chat's over.
Yeah, I think
Warriors. Is it on YouTube?
It's on
Bandcamp. On your site. On Bandcamp.
Yeah, and there's a lot of it's
Warriors people.
Yeah, and there's a few good things on there. But I was watching a lot of Tim and Eric, awesome show, great job at the time, and I was really like, okay, I don't have to be completely alienated by American culture. I could make fun of it if I want. So I was really like, it was like a part of myself that was slowly expanding to the point now where I can like, I'm not even a serious person at all anymore, because it's like doing comedy and not taking yourself seriously is like a vacation from your own suffering, you know? So you can just like, I look like an idiot. I don't care. Whatever. I don't give a fuck, man. Doesn't matter. So, but yeah, man, it was good.
That, like, sometimes the people that are the most sensitive in that sense cover it up with the greatest sense of humor.
Yes, it's true. And I've been accused of that by people that know me too. And they're like, what is this? Some kind of fucking Robin Williams impersonation or something? I'm like, man, fuck you, you know? And it's like, it really is that sort of laughing just to keep from crying type thing. And I think that sometimes humor, you know, the people who are the best at humor, I mean, if you think about just even the origins of gallows humor, it's people are just trying to survive the moment, you know. And what I realized was interesting is I got on Prozac 7 months ago, after trying to get on medication for a long time, but because I'm kind of a high functioning individual, like no doctors believed that I was really struggling, but I was like, you don't understand. Like I'm kind of ruined. My life is being ruined because of my inability to enjoy it, you know? And they're like, okay. So I got on Prozac, and I started to actually feel like the things that I'd never felt before. Like, you know how you were telling me, you were telling me, oh man, I like your monologues and, you know, all this stuff. And like, for the first time in my life, I felt like I started to feel in the last couple months, like the things that I'm putting out into the world, like actually are having a positive impact.
Yeah, me, I had one.
Yeah, I'm
just to tell everybody, Skinner would do these monologues on Instagram that were just hilarious and could cheer you up if you were not having a great day. But you couldn't really tell. I mean, you could tell that you were thinking deeply about stuff, but overall, it was a weird process. You know, getting it off your head, but getting to a better place. But also, there was humor. So that helps. I mean, I also got a lot out of it. So
I'm glad. I was trying really hard just to like, I think the thing that I felt like was kind of keeping me alive was like the idea that anything I did was sort of like did kind of matter to people, or like, because I really think that this new age of internet, social media stuff is extraordinarily like discouraging, but like mostly like I feel like it puts people off balance, because I think that it kind of is an ever-present pressure to do something, be something, or sustain something, or participate, or like, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you're missing out. Like you're not, you're not posting, you're not about
there.
And yeah, and I feel like I was like, well, if I'm gonna participate in this, then I'm gonna just try to like make this fun little dumb joke about it all, and kind of just alleviate pressure. Like I was like, well, I'll use this thing that kind of fucks with people to kind of like make people feel a little better or something if they stumble upon my shit. And honestly, doing comedy is scary and weird, but it's fun. And I also realized too that if you're kind of just laughing at stuff, it's an infectious energy. And everything, like I start laughing even before I start talking, because I'm like, I'm talking into a goddamn phone right now. This is so dumb. Like, I can't believe if I'm a 40-year-old man, like, yo, what's up? It's your friend Skinner. Like, what? It's insane. It doesn't, I don't know. It makes no sense, but I don't know. It's a good tool.
I thought that the Fred reveals his inner beast.
You like that?
So it's kind of like, taking the average look at society and saying like, oh yeah, there's people out there like this character. You played that person perfectly.
Thank you.
Store guy who gives you a little bit too much info about his life, but
yes.
That's there's some sort of darkness about it, but it's so brilliantly funny that you can't help but not appreciate that. It's a fine line, isn't it, between the darkness and the light?
Yeah, I think it's have you ever had a conversation with somebody where it's like going really good and then all of a sudden you get that peek into the fact that like, oh, this person's not well? That's when you make that crossover, like I was buying flowers for Christy because sometimes she goes out of town to visit her friend. And so when she comes home, I like to have a lot of flowers for her when she gets home, And so like I go to this place and I was buying flowers from this woman and the whole interaction was going super good. I was like, this is great. But then all of a sudden it turned into a conversation about her paranoia about satanic globalists. And I was like, oh yeah. And so like what happens is you go from being like, oh, I'm talking to another person, it's all good, to like the mode of like, okay, now I'm accommodating your emotional and intellectual fragility. I just want you to feel okay because this is an issue of contention in your life. So, but the back issues that you're talking about, that little mini film I made. So I've been going into comic book stores forever because I love comics, but every time you go into a comic book store, just kind of observe who's the person working there and listen to what they're saying, because it's funny that person is an amalgamation of several comic book clerks who like is insane. Who, like this guy in Sacramento, he told me, I was like, hey, how are you doing, man? He's like, good. Went to my nephew's birthday this weekend, ended up breaking his wrist. It was like, and I'm just like, what the fuck? And like, so people, when they watch that cartoon, they're like, well, this guy's crazy. And I'm like, literally almost everything that guy says is a sort of this running continuous collective of things I've been keeping in my mind. And then when I did the audio recording for that cartoon, that was like 2 takes.
Oh, wow.
I just went off. For like, and it was so funny. Good. My engineer guy, he was just sitting there listening to me like, dude, how do you have this in your brain? Like, what is wrong with you? And I'm trying to like not get distracted or self-conscious. Like, uh-oh, this guy knows I'm crazy. Like, oh shit. So
it was perfect. I think I've met somebody like that before.
I bet you have.
Maybe an auto mechanic though. I don't think he worked in a comic shop.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. honestly. Like people are the most interesting thing is like meeting people and just like kind of observing their weird trip that they're on, you know. No matter where you go, I'm like, whoa, this person's bugging out on this. Like, okay,
So
you know.
does it crack you up when you give somebody a monologue like that and then you see it come back animated?
Yes, it's insane.
That
But
must have
like,
killed you, right? I mean, I can't imagine seeing that.
well, that's like, okay, so the guy that animated that is some weird dude that lives in a basement in Canada. In I forget where he lives, like really far away, like, or in where, not Ottawa, is it Ottawa or something, but like some like rural area.
Yeah.
And he's a hospital janitor at night, and then he comes home and animates weird shit. And so the whole experience was strange because his sense of humor mixing with my sense of humor created this sort of like abomination, you know. I was like, okay, all right, okay, this is cool, this is weird, all right.
I thought it was brilliant. And if you haven't, is the name of it Fred Reveals His Inner Beast, or am I getting?
Well, that's the that is the blurb that I used to kind of try to get people, but it's called Back Issues. Which is a term for like comic books that they have at comic book stores that are older. But I thought it was funny because it's like back issues. Like this dude has like issues from way back, like many issues emotionally, you know.
And it seems you get to collaborate with like a lot of the stop frame animation stuff. So is that something that you're doing yourself, or are you collaborating with people to make that stuff when you do them? When you do that, you do your paintings that way. Sometimes you'll, as you're doing now, only it'll be stop frame, and really cool to see it come across. But when you're
like the After Effects stuff.
Yeah, well, when you're working on, like, say, the Wisdom of the Lurkers little things, or the Skinner's Hell Dream stuff, is that like sort of like you're working with people, or you're actually taking on all the editing and doing all the craziness?
Well, I'd be a complete psycho if I did all that stuff, because I can't do all this shit and like at the same time. But because I'll just go crazy, and my wife will be like, "What's wrong with you, dude? Why don't you just enjoy your life for 5 seconds and like let somebody else do something?" So I work with like, so what happens with my collaborative stuff is somebody will say, "Hey, do you want to work on something?" And then I will say, "What have you done?" You know, and then like I get to look at what they do, and then I think to myself, like, how can I apply what I do to this person's shit? So then I kind of, I know it kind of sounds fucked up, but what I do is like somebody goes, "Hey, I have this skill." And then I say, "All right, cool. Here's all the art. Now get to work," you know? And like, and they're like, they're happy with it. And I'm not a micromanager guy. I kind of go, "All right, show me, you know, like, what do you got," or whatever. And like right now I'm working on a video game, the Shrine of Abominations, the stop motion horror film, which I'll send you snippets of. That happened because this guy, Ross Kennedy, who is an absolute genius artist, sculptor. Like, he's like, in this world, there are people like me who are obnoxious freaks that want a lot of attention and have like some modicum of skill. And then there's other people who are like, have all the skill, but no social stuff, where they're not like, "Hey, look at me, I can do it, draw a Satan head," or whatever. And so he's like one of these guys where I went over to his studio, and it's like, oh, this guy's like a wizard. He's like a genius, you know? And I go, "Okay, so what do you want to do?" He goes, "Well, I want to do stop motion." And I said, "All right, well, I want, you know, you always got to test people out to see if they're professional." So I said, "Well, let's do some commercials for Adult Swim." And he did, and they were fucking amazing. Yeah. And then I said, "All right, well, let's make a fantasy horror epic film, and we'll do a Kickstarter, and we'll try to make a lot of money." And he goes, "Okay, that sounds good." So I kind of just tease things out with people to see like, what do they want to do or not. And I try to use my career as sort of a platform to build teams and shit. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, you know? So I don't know. I'm fucking lucky, man. I'm spoiled as fuck. Like every day, like I'm just like, I know I work hard and stuff, but like it like the things I get to do, like just little things like this, talking to you is like a dream to me. I'm like, cause you know, growing up, I'm like, oh man, I bet one day I'll have a cool conversation with like one of my musical heroes. Like you never think that until it happens. And you're just like, what the fuck? I can't believe it.
Dude, though.
Yeah, I'm a regular dude too.
You know, it's really cool though that you have integrated with bands, and so I guess you get to be called what at that point, the video artistic director or whatever, when you don't actually have to sit down and do the editing or do all the acting or whatever. But your videos with Mastodon for Sultan's Curse, Sleep in the Deep are out there and highly creative. So how is it that like it seems like super high budget in the sense that if you're going to create a creature, do they go out and actually make all that stuff?
Well, so the people that I work with on these videos is a production company called Hey Beautiful Jerk. And funny enough, like they work with me. I don't like, I know it's because we're friends, but they do shit with like Rihanna and Cardi B and Netflix and all this stuff. So like when they work with me, it's like they're like slumming it. You know what I mean? It's like they're like, oh, we want some art cred. Let's do something that, you know, there's something weird. So I'm like constantly like they're like bestowing upon me their like glorious skills. You know what I mean? And so I try to work really, really hard and be super accountable to them. But when we did Mastodon Asleep in the Deep, I went to Atlanta and for a month straight built all the sets, built all the puppets. Yeah, built everything. I'm in those puppets and shit. The frog guy, that's me in there. The like we did all this stuff, and then that was when Hey Beautiful Jerk reached out to me and they said, hey, if you need any VFX help, we'll hook you up. And so what happened was they helped me. We formed a partnership, and that since then we've done like a ton of videos and stuff. But like I send them the art, and if they go, it's sort of like this weird it's very much like a highly functioning system where I go, okay, we're doing this project together. And then I go, what do we need? And then they go, these are the assets we need. So then I make them and immediately send them to them. And then they're sending me files. I'm sending them files back and forth. And then I'm making changes. I'm fixing stuff. I'm adding things. I'm doing new stuff. Like, I remember, like it got so high functioning that I was on vacation in Hawaii. And they were like the day before the video went live or whatever, they're like, hey, we need like 2 things. Can you do it? And I was like, yeah, hold on. And you know, I go, hey, I'm going to go get some beers. And then I could just disappear into the back room and draw like a little, like a weird thing and then send it. And they're like, what were you doing back there? You better not have been working. I'm like, I'm sorry. I can't abandon my team. So, you know, I'm lucky, man. They do all the editing. They do the VFX. I'm a simpleton. I'm like I just make the art and stuff, and I can, you know, I know how to do Photoshop and stuff, but I don't know how to, you know, I leave all the fancy shit up to other people.
It's great when you can collaborate with such great results, though. That's when you know it kind of makes it more fun then when you got a team.
Dude, I'm so lucky. For sure. Yeah, I know, man.
Funny, Mastodon's manager was my next door neighbor, Nick John.
Oh, right. Yeah. He was cool.
And he passed away about 2 years ago or so. It was so sad because he's one of those guys that doesn't want to talk about being sick. When he was sick, he'd just come out and be like, oh, you know, himself. And then he'd be like, you okay, man? And he'd just hug me and say, I love you, Kevin.
Oh, my God.
And we lost him just like 2 weeks later.
I can't believe that. That was so fast. Hi. Oh, hi. How's it going? Good to see you. Yes, a cameo. No, man, that was it was funny because like you become friends with all these people
Yeah.
by just communicating with them online and kind of talking to them every once in a while and blah blah blah. And then you don't realize like how much you connect and care about people until they're like sick or gone. And then you're just like, whoa, it's so weird. I don't think I paid enough attention to that relationship or something. I don't know. It's like, that's what go ahead.
It's like too much real.
I know. But it's like Mastodon is, dude, again, I'm so lucky because they like I became friends with Braun, and he like he goes, hey, do you want to make a music video or something? And I had never made a music video
Really?
before Sleep in the Deep, never. And he was just like, I think you could do it. I think you'd be all right.
You would never know.
And I was like, what? Okay. I was like, all right. And I remember the waves of exquisite excitement mixing with waves of exquisite anxiety about like, dude, if I fuck this up, like if you fuck up, like there's the drummer from like one of the biggest bands in the world is like, hey, I believe in you. I think you could do something. And then you just like spinal tap it super hard. And you're just like, no, dude, I don't know. I don't know, man.
I don't feel that at all. Actually, I would have never known that's your first video.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. What's been the most pleasing video that you've made? Is that probably the most fun you had making a music video? Has there been one since?
Well, it's weird because like there's different reasons. Like Budfoot is probably the most emotionally validating film that I've been able to work on. But as far as like music videos, Asleep in the Deep is a highly memorable experience for me because I was there with all the puppeteers. I had to, dude, we hired and fired cat actors on that, because we had to get a cat to be in the video. And the first cat that came along, I was like, this cat's great, but the mom is crazy. We got to get rid of this cat's not going to work. So we had to get another cat. I formed relationships with Shane Morton, the head of Silver Scream Effects. The guys that here's a funny thing. The guys that did all the filming and all the media stuff on the Mastodon Asleep in the Deep were the guys that came around years later and made Budfoot with me.
Oh, there you go.
So I was like, so they knew that I was like maybe a hard worker guy, or that I was like not going to let it go to shit, under like pressure and stuff. But so I was there for a month. I got to learn to love every single person there. I was really deeply embedded in the project with all these people. And it was just a life-changing experience. And then the 3 days of filming that, 3 days. The first day was an 18-hour film day. The second day was an 18-hour film day. And then the third day was 24 hours straight of filming. And everybody was crazy, dude. Like everybody was like losing their mind. And there was a lot of tension, but I was like, I can't let this fail. I kind of just in my mind, I was like, I don't care if I don't sleep for 2 days. All I have to do is just drink a lot of water and not sit down, and I won't get tired. I'm just, whatever. And we did it. Everybody else had like drugs, but I was like kind of being too wimpy. I was like, dude, I don't want to do drugs and go crazy. I want to just stay sober. I want to make sure that this works. And I would say Asleep in the Deep, but then the High on Fire animated, the animated epic for Black Clot, that was also, I made that with Hey Beautiful Jerk. And that also was another like learning experience where I learned from the ground up storyboards, keyframes, animation, I painted all the backgrounds. I did all the characters. I created, you know, so it was like out of all these videos, every one hit me different, you know, and I don't know, man. It's weird because you show the video and everybody watches it and then just kind of goes on with their life. But I'm like, dude, that took me like a year. That took me a year to make that shit.
It's amazing how long good stuff takes. Sometimes not so long.
Yeah.
What?
And then Metallica wanted us to do it, but they didn't want to pay the money.
Oh, wow.
I know. I was like, just let me there. But you know what it is like, you know how it is where like management steps in and is like, nah, dude, that's too crazy, whatever. But you know, making an animated epic film like that high level, that's like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I think that like, as time has gone on, people just do a lot of animation, and it's like, yeah, but there's a difference between full animation and like After Effects, you know?
Yeah.
Anyways, no hard feelings to Metallica or nothing, but you know.
Where would you like to see this go? I know you're working on Shrine of Abominations. Is that something that you see going to be finishing soon, or is that like a labor of love that could go on until it's just done when it's done?
Well, actually, we're getting pretty close. I would say I'd say like in 6 months, there might be like a 25-minute long cut, but there's still a little bit of like live action. There's some puppets that still need to be built, but we've been working on that for years. And did you see me talking about Dinosaurs Attack at all?
I think so.
So Dinosaurs Attack was the failed sequel to Mars Attacks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was like this not successful thing, but when it came out in like 1988 or something, it hit me like a ton of bricks, dude. Cause basically there's a dinosaur god who sent all of his dinosaurs to the Earth dimension because they don't have any souls to eat humans and all this shit. And it's, dude, the story is bonkers crazy. And the other day, somebody from Tops hit me up and said, hey, do you want to do some Mars Attack stuff? And I said, hell no, but I want to do Dinosaurs Attacks. And they're like, oh, we haven't done anything with that property in like 30 years. Like, no. And I was like, you better get back on it because this is the time for Dinosaurs Attacks. And so basically I had these conversations with them where I'm like, how about this? Let me do some stop motion Dinosaurs Attack shit with my friend. We'll make a commercial and then we're going to like reinvigorate this. And they're like wanting me to whatever, like draw a Martian or something. And then like, I kind of like turn it into, let's relaunch Dinosaurs Attacks. And this is the way we're going to do it and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, I'm kind of, that's kind of the technique that I use for shit where I'm like, people go, hey, let's do this thing. And I go, what if we do this other thing and it's way bigger and crazier? And then I'll do it and I'll get my friends and we'll, and like, if they let me do it, it's going to be awesome. But it's like convincing all these people to, with the purse strings to like, let the money go. But I want to do movies. I want to make films. I had a full horror film ready to go about called The Rite of Passage that I was going to film in Atlanta right before this pandemic hit. And, and I got it storyboarded out. It's all ready to go. I got the music, everything. All I had to do was get the actors. I got the special effects shit going, all this stuff, but things happen.
COVID puts a stop to the things when you got to have a crew and get people together and do stuff.
Yeah, COVID is taking a shit. But you know what? I needed to stop for a minute. I needed a pause to get on medication, to get a handle on my life, I needed to pay attention to what was going on that I was ignoring, my relationship with my wife and making sure that like, that I was being present for that and just being a good person and not, not like neglecting the parts of myself that I was afraid to acknowledge because I was too sad, and so I'm doing good, man. I'm glad now. I feel like, once the Trump virus is over,
oh yeah,
we can get back to it.
Amen.
Get the Trump. But what's up with you, man? I want to know. Wait,
I can feel the pressure lifting, like minute by minute. Like as soon as that guy's out of here,
I know,
and his whole cabinet.
I know.
His cabinet's worse, or what do we call those other dudes like Barr and Pompeo and that Macaulay Culkin, whatever her name is.
Dude, his evil children. Oh my God, dude. His kids are so fail.
Is this not just I mean, it sounds like straight out of a sci-fi, bad guy. He's almost like the straight up bad guy from Batman and Robin. Only he really is bad, glowing orange. There's nothing to like about him,
No, it's weird too, like watching over time as people have kind of like just gotten more right wing or decided they like him or something. And like I just kind of feel like for me, I'm like, dude, if you don't see everything that this Trump guy does as like a totally hilarious, like humiliating embarrassment and just like horrible, like I just can't, I don't know if I could talk to you anymore. It's like, I just feel like you're too dumb, I mean, it doesn't mean that Biden's, a great candidate or whatever, but he's not like a humiliating amalgamation of the worst personality traits on earth. He's just an old guy.
Gernot Gerbel, thanks. He says, I would love to see a Skinner comic about a presidential election. Man, me too.
Dude, I did the day after Trump got elected, I wrote a story about how I would want his first day in office to go. And essentially what happened is he goes to the golf course and there's protesters that come up to the golf course. So all of his Secret Service leave him to go deal with the protesters. And he like fumbles off into this like, miniature forest and falls down on the ground. He's like, oh, they left me. And then he finds mushrooms on the ground. He's like, I'm starving. Of course, he's only been there for 5 minutes. He's like, I'm starving. I need food. And then he eats mushrooms and he eats hallucinogenic mushrooms. And then basically like they take him back to the White House and he starts to trip out on mushrooms and he sees George Washington on a horse and he's running away from journalists and he's doing all this stuff. And essentially what happens is he accidentally creates world peace by having these heart-to-heart talks with the dictators and shit because he's on mushrooms. In the war room and all this stuff. And so I was like, this is what I would want to happen. It would never happen, of course, but that's, what I would want anyways.
What's your thoughts on mushrooms? I know that you sort of like portrayed the idea of the extreme psychedelia. Is that something that let's speak about mushrooms or psychedelia experience?
Yeah. I think that, I think that taking mushrooms can be an extremely healing process for people. But I think like the way that it affects your mind in a lot of ways is going to sometimes kind of refract what you are bringing to that moment. So like, if you're like having unsettled feelings about your life and stuff, or the world or whatever, it's going to show you that stuff and it's going to kind of make you face those things in a way that if you're not equipped to handle the message, it's going to be really hard for you.
Yeah.
But I personally love psychedelia as a form of kind of unwinding the conditioning of like our society. And that's like, whatever messaging our society has, whatever messaging that we've absorbed, all this stuff. And it can kind of reset your mind to the point where the moment becomes the most important aspect of what your experience is. And I think that that's something that we get we lose sight of. So you take mushrooms, you're with your friends, you could die laughing for like 4 hours straight, and it's just a cleansing thing. And even though you're laughing, but it's like it's an actual like kind of like medicine, like spiritual medicine. And even when you're not doing good, like sometimes you take some mushrooms and all of a sudden you're feeling the heaviness of the world, or you're kind of taking it on. If you resist it, it's going to hurt more. So it's like, it's a weird teacher, because it's teaching you things that you may not realize are super important to take from the spirit world when you're on mushrooms into your regular life, And so the more you take mushrooms, the more you get the message, I guess.
Did you get some of your inspiration for your colors and stuff with psychedelic experience?
Yeah, I would say so. But I also feel like I haven't just gone fucking insanely crazy on hallucinogens in so long, because I'm not like a young, inexperienced person anymore. So like a lot of the psychedelic experiences that I have become more like emotional, like where I'm very, very aware of how grateful I am, or like how I'm so like, I sometimes I feel like the things that I take for granted become the most in focus thing, where I'm like, oh my God, sometimes I take mushrooms and my mind just starts to remember all the good things that anybody's ever done for me. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like, I can't believe this person really loves me. That's so cool. And I think that that's kind of something that happens with weed too. So like, if you smoke weed, you can kind of get the same, sometimes I'll be sitting down and I'll go, man, I really need to do some artwork. And then I'll smoke a little bit of weed to kind of just vibe out. And then I'll just start texting everybody, I miss you. I love you. How are you doing? Like, oh, what's up? What are you doing? And I just kind of, I don't know, you just kind of go with it. And I think it's a very, there's a lot of presence that can be had with these drugs, but I'm not really, I don't know. I guess maybe I'm just kind of a boring guy now, because I feel like the things that I like about drugs is definitely not drug culture. I think drug culture is annoying. I think like smoking weed is cool, but I don't like look at the weed and like evaluate the purple hairs and shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care about that shit. Like, just put it in the pipe, dude. Like, I just want to smoke it and get on my bike and ride my bike, dude. I just want to go. But yeah, I don't know. Do you take mushrooms? Do you like mushrooms?
I was just about to say, I think you reach a place where, a certain age where, that was maybe your last trip, or the last one that you needed, the last time you needed to take mushrooms, because you've got it all that you need. It's happened to you a few times. And if it happens to you, like that, you get this really intense experience, sometimes you say, okay, I know I don't need to enter that door for a while again. And I don't know if you've ever had a really bad trip, but bad trips on acid, like I had a few when I was growing up that really shook me hard.
Yes.
And so I kind of like, I'm not the type of person, I don't look at those type of drugs in a way without sort of like, realizing like, what they say, you got to have your baggage checked before you get in that door. I'm not.
The potential ramifications of a bad acid trip. It's like, are you ready for this, dude?
Those. It's funny how they live on with you. One happened to me significantly in the 70s, and there was a picture from that day of the crowd. It was in a crowd. Bad idea, by the way.
Oh my God!
If I ever see that picture, which it comes up from time to time on my desktop pictures, I don't know. I'll tell you.
Right, you remember it, huh?
Instantly, I get that feeling of like,
no.
Yeah, that overwhelming. But it's really been the source of like, okay, say I put it into probably musical expression or
yes,
or things that have helped. So in the long run, it did help. But at the time, I wouldn't say I would want to live it again.
Dude, how the fuck, like, okay, so like, I've been confounded by the way that you make music, because sometimes I can listen to a band and just think to myself, like, oh, I kind of understand how they did this. I get this. I know what they did. Like I've been in, I've recorded a bunch and I've done all that shit. When I listen to your music, I'm like, what kind of fucking reverse engineering shit is this, dude? It's insane. Like with all the, with the collaging of sound and like when I first started listening to Too Dark Park, I remember it was the first time that I would listen to it all the time and everybody'd be like, what is this, man? And I'm like, this is like, it's like once you get into something good, you kind of can't go back to like some weird, shitty, like industrial basic music. I was like, no, this is the next level stuff. This is it.
Thing is that, as you say, always appreciate the things that you have and don't take them for granted. Afterwards, and in retrospect, I find that what created that is that we were a strange band that would create all the music first. So
right.
Could then suggest sort of like the direction of which things would go. And then when you add things such as lyrics and other sort of samples and stuff like that at the time, you could bring forth like this picture that we get. All of a sudden this picture developed. You could really see it developing. But we had a great team of people that and a great studio where these things could all happen, and we could destructure something and rebuild it back up, and then it would have this like sort of like ferocity and intensity that kind of like would work on us first. And if it worked on us, we figured, well, if it works on us, it must work on other people.
Yeah.
So we just kind of followed that formula for a while without really thinking too much about just changing anything or doing anything differently. And that was kind of a blessing, because I think we did that for like about a decade straight. And
yes.
Then as soon as we started thinking about, well, I mean, we got a new record deal with Rick Rubin, and we thought that would be a great deal. But then as soon as we got into a situation where somebody wanted to do, like you said earlier, they wanted to like change you or manipulate you a little bit, or change your team, or suggest that you do things differently, it just completely threw a wrench in our system. Dude. And we imploded as a result shortly thereafter as a result of that. And that's a lesson learned. So never let anybody come in and say, mess with your system, or lose belief in like the way you make things. If you're achieving the end result, you'll never have that feeling again if you leave it and try it elsewhere in another way and don't have that same feeling. That's the thing you'll miss most of all, is you go, oh, that feeling, where's that feeling of
right
of it working?
Right.
So I don't know how it did work for us, because at the time we weren't really like making music to try and sound like anybody or be like anybody. It was like just simply go. And so
okay, so the industrial scene in Canada was going off, or hi.
That's Tiger. Hi. I'm Tiger.
I know. I'm waiting for a special cameo from the clone, but she's not.
I love your cat name, the clone.
The clone. Yeah. Dude, wait. So in Canada, there was like a industrial style like scene, or what? Because like, what was the scene up there like?
In Vancouver at the time, I think I could say it was a very progressive city at that time in the 80s. And I really have to say still, like to this day, it had some of the best clubs that I think I've still ever been to in my life. There was this one called the Love Affair that basically everything kind of like was based around. And so the first goal in life was just to have a song played at the club, just so I could hear it on their sound system. So you realize that once you achieve that goal, that takes you to the next goal, and that takes you to the next goal. So definitely we had a strong scene that was incredibly unique and incredibly supportive of people making art. And so, you know, we were super lucky that, you know, we had the support right off the bat from the community who supported us. And oddly, people were into music up there that I don't think, you know, it wasn't like famous music. It was like people were into, like someone said, I'm growing tentacles. Yeah, this is a tiger tail.
Love it.
People were kind of into, you know, Throbbing Gristle and stuff like that. But it wasn't until I met this guy, Bill Lieb, who's kind of known now for his band Frontline Assembly.
Oh, yes.
I was in this other band, and he invited me over to his house one night, and he played me. I had never heard like really the most underground experimental music yet in my life. But that night, he played it all for me, and we had done some psychedelics, and it changed my life. So wow, like you should make music like that. And so Bill and I right away started making music, and that's what really kind of formed Skinny Puppies. So it was just kind of like following a path, you know. You just see a path, merge, and then follow it. But
well, before that, what were you into? Remember that song, Sex Dwarf? Like, I love that song.
What song?
Sex Dwarf.
Oh yeah.
Dude, that's the best song ever. Anyways, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
I was the lighting man at the Love Affair because I just really was so intrigued by the late 79, 80. So this was like this music that was coming about that was the birth of new wave, really.
So cool.
Was you know, Fad Gadget and the Normal and like the DAF and the beginnings of say Robert Rensel and Thomas Lear, and so it was like a really vibrant era, and
that's amazing.
It could remold you, and music was so vibrant back then and so original that definitely reshaped me. And there was nothing else to do in that city at that time, so basically, yeah, you had to devote yourself to something. It was kind of like probably being like in Sacramento.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like it's interesting. It's like I'm always afraid of being the guy who's like, you kids don't know what it was like before the internet, you know, like whatever. But it was so, like, I was telling somebody the other day, they're like, they didn't understand what I was even saying. And I was like, no, you don't get it. Like, I would, like, for my art shows and when my band would play, I would pass out flyers like at Target and shit in parking lots. Like, I would look at people and be like, you're a weird looking kind of a person. Like, I bet I could swindle you into coming to my art show or something, you know, come see my weird band or something. But like, people don't, I think, have an understanding of the sort of, the very, it's kind of innocent now to like look back on it, you know, like, you know, getting your flyers made, like making your little flyers, going to Kinko's, printing them all out and then cutting them up and then handing them out to people, going to other people's shows to tell them about another show. Like, that was the glory days, dude. I was going to see bands like 5 nights a week easily for 10 years. I just nonstop, like, fuck, this is my scene. These are my people. And you know what's cool? I remember I was in this sort of like proto heavy metal kind of Faith No More style band called The Little People. Yeah, the Little People. I'll try to find a CD and get.
Okay, I gotta hear this.
Yeah, it was like circusy, creepy metal, but dude, you'd look out into the audience, and a lot of times it would just be other people from other bands and like their girlfriends and like the girls and their boyfriends or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're just like, I know for sure there's going to be at least 20 people tonight because there's that many people who are going to be flyering, you know? And so it was, were
you the vocalist?
Yeah, singing. I wrote all the music most of the time. I was in a band. I'll send you this. There's this other band I was in with Christy, my wife. She was the drummer. It was like a kind of like a stoner thrash metal band in like 2008 called Iguanodon. And it was fun, man. Like, it was fascinating to see, like, if you're in a band in a scene that nobody really cares, but then all of a sudden you start to see other people show up and you go, oh, like, this is kind of how it happens. You start to do this thing and other people are like, hey, this band is fun or interesting, or like, it's not like a bunch of tough guys or whatever, so because Sacramento was an extraordinarily tough town. I remember our band would open up a lot early on, the Little People. We would open up, it's the funniest name. We would open up and like the other bands would get into a fight and then we'd get all the money because the other bands would fight and they'd get kicked out. And then we were the only band that would play. And then I remember one night we got like $700 for playing for like 15 minutes, and I was like, all right, cool, man. Let's do it. Let's fucking party.
That's the way.
I mean, it's like being in a band is, when it's good, it's the best. And when it's not good, it's the fucking worst, man. It's like, being in a horrible relationship with like a bunch of weird dudes and you're just like, man, what would I even hang out with this guy? Like,
right.
If I
it's just lucky the first band I got into with these guys were such sweethearts. Like, I'm still friends with them all today and love them all. They taught me so much. And I don't think if that hadn't happened, I would never have continued. That's for sure.
Are you, so now you're at home, you're like, do you mind if I don't know is it okay we keep talking? Is this okay? Okay. What is your practice? Like, you get up, you kind of hang out, you chill, you feed the dogs, you feed the cats, and then hang out, and then you make a little, like, you make music, or do you kind of like, do you just get in there and get kind of weird for a couple hours, or what do you do? Like, how does it go? Tell me how it goes.
I'm like more like a guy like jumping around all over the place. Like, I kind of like sit in one sort of thing day after day after day. So I'll like work on an idea with the guy that's making a toy one day, or working an idea with for a module that I'm making for a synthesizer company, or stuff like this. And then I've also found, I don't know about you, but since this whole coronavirus thing happened, I had like this album that I had finished, and I was going to be like ready for March.
Wow.
That's when I wanted it to be done by March. So when March came around and it was like, everyone was just like, okay, this whole thing's happening, we're on lockdown. I started thinking, wait, maybe I want to work on this album longer. So I ended up working on it until last month.
Wow.
And so, really found that, the time like slowed down so that you, as you were saying, able to get sort of like take things so much more slowly and think about what you're really doing and stuff. And then, so that's, I think it was actually the guy who I was chatting with last week said he felt great because he knows the rest of the world isn't up to much either right now. we're all not doing much.
Yeah.
So it made him kind of feel better about, like, taking your time or taking something more slowly. But so my approach lately hasn't been anything like my approach in my regular time. It's almost like I've become this COVID Kevin.
Is it a conceptual album, or is it, what is it, just like?
It's an album that I based on so songs that, it's weird, when you write a solo album, you don't think you're writing a solo album because you don't take note of the songs as you write them. So some of them were written like several years ago, some were written last year, some were written over time, and then you realize you got enough material for your album, and then you go in. And so the concept was really weird for me, in that I grew up in Vancouver, and there's a 10,000 acre park that's like pretty well densely forested. You could get lost in this forest in the city.
Wow.
And we grew up there our whole lives, and your mom, your dad took you there. You were at the beach there as a kid. You rode bikes there. You got stoned there as you were a teenager. You hung out with all your friends there. And then, like, just 5 years ago or less, I found out about that there was a 3,000-year-old Salish indigenous village there that existed for 3,000 years in this area. on that spot. And so when I did mushrooms and stuff there, I used to get all these really crazy like images and crazy things that I would feel. You feel like you've seen spirits and all this sort of thing. And then when I learned that, when I found out about it, sort of like when it got colonized, the area when the Western colonization came in, the whole tribe died, or the remnants of the tribe got moved away from the area, and basically George Vancouver basically took the land, and he didn't buy it or anything like that. So it made me realize, wow, that's such a heavy story, that this whole, like, a city as old as an Egyptian pyramid got wiped out when we arrived, and they had this ancient history that they just kind of like buried it over, they covered it up, and they never told us it. Like, nobody ever talked about the history of it, or nobody explained it. So our whole lives, if I speak to anybody in Vancouver, that nobody really knows that story. So I just found it so compelling. It like made me feel like, that feeling you get when you become extra sensitized by what humanity's wrongs are and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
How insensitive we can be to things and how things are. I think as we get older, you become more, I don't know what the word is.
More sweet and soft and able. It's like empathy becomes the kind of the currency of your soul or whatever. Yeah, I know. It's like you start to see things in such a more sensitive way, or you become a psycho. It's like one or the other.
So I almost feel like sometimes like I need something like a Prozac, because I sometimes will get lost in when you lose people, like when people die, that really fucks me up.
Yeah.
I never thought that it would, as much as it does. But man, like I lost my partner, Phil, last year, or actually it's coming up 2 years now. But like, when I lost Dwayne, my partner, now 25 years ago, it doesn't go away, that feeling of like when you're so close to your partner that you work with, and then you lose them. It's like, it's something that you kind of carry with you throughout time. But when you add that of like the challenge of going into the studio each day without saying, you're reminded of your friend or you're reminded of your partner, and not like having to get over that, to step over the pain, sometimes to get creative now becomes more of a challenge for me than not. Like that's my biggest challenge.
So do you think that this record is like, it's like invoking the inspiration around the kind of loss and forgottenness and sort of the crime that happened to that tribe? Is that sort of the inspiration? Is like,
it's like the feeling of that you feel that it was rubbed out and forgotten and not spoken about. So it's like the similar thing to losing somebody.
Wow.
Unless you keep that person alive in your heart and soul, they're forgotten and not talked about. It's like this is sort of like you're carrying your values. So from this point on, you choose what you care about. You become a more caring person when you say, that really moved me, or their history really moved me. Some people may not even care, but like certain things start to move you, and then you realize, this is what things mean to me. Like, so when I make an album now, it's like the song has to have some sort of vested meaning for me to have like a value. It's like this one has.
Yeah, it's the grace of it's like the grace of holding pain, and the grace of holding loss, or the grace of having that stuff be in you, and knowing that having sort of the strength, I guess, to be okay with it being with you kind of like omnipresently, and to not compartmentalize it in a way as to not acknowledge it. Because I think that's what I feel like is a key component to the spiritual inadequacy of humans, is to not be able to like hold pain and have it be okay, or hold the complexity of life and not compartmentalize it or forget it or find a way to look past it or justify it, or and I think those are kind of the only people I can kind of kind of like identify with anymore too, because like I hang out with a bunch of people and I'm like, man, I used to be able to hang out with these people. Now I'm just like, I can't do it. I'm too like, messy and bizarre and open and loving. And I just want to talk about real stuff all the time. And like, some people are like, nah, man, I'm just trying to hold it together, like whatever. And I realized that not a lot of people have, the emotional resilience or the sort of the reserves to be able to have it, you know, like just to be able to drop, you know, at the drop of a hat, have like an intense conversation with somebody about loss, or just to hear somebody talking about something heavy without taking it on. It's like, there's all these skills that we don't really emphasize as important for navigating life culturally or socially, is like, you know, being available to the greater whole, and to not place yourself above, you know, like the idea that other people are also having a very bizarre experience on earth as well, you know, because we're busy, we're filing paperwork and we're doing our taxes and we're fucking going grocery shopping and, you know, doing our laundry and shit. But a lot of times I feel like what gets lost is that it's sort of like a very, very miraculous, unique opportunity to experience consciousness in this way for like this short amount of time. So like wasting it by not experiencing the whole thing just seems like criminal, you know? I'm a hippie, man.
That's not hippie. That's just good. That's good people. I found that like the people I connect with most now are the people that we can have these discussions where we talk about how we overcome, say, our greatest challenges, which is sometimes in our own mind. And yeah, like my friend Chris Corner is basically kind of like good at kind of like trying to teach mindfulness, and like being aware that, you know, your brain is like full of these patterns like weather systems. And they roll in, and you identify that as a weather pattern and say, okay, I see a cloud, it's going by. And that the more that you can sort of like separate yourself from that in that situation and see life for what it is. Were you finding that you reached a point where you were not able to see the weather pattern go by before you wanted to sort of seek some relief? And was the relief something that really like gave you like an instant sigh of like, oh my God, I'm finally feeling better?
Well, you know, what's funny is like, I have had, I think I inherited or developed through trauma or abuse or whatever, like chemical imbalance in my brain, like from a young age. Like I didn't have any serotonin or whatever. And so like I would get serotonin and dopamine from like achieving shit, right, you know, or doing something. So I would be like, oh, this feels good, you know? But what happened was I was building a life for myself constantly, like a cool relationship, like an art career. I was expanding on that. I was trying to build my business, my life, whatever. But depression was this key component that I could just never get around. Like I could accomplish anything. Like I feel like, you know, I'm one of those annoying people that was told at a young age, like, oh, you could probably do whatever you want, you know? And you're like, all right, I'm going to do it, you know? And then you just kind of like do shit. And even if it's hard, you just kind of keep going. But I could never get around depression. And I felt like I would have these breakdowns where I was so depressed. I felt drugged. I felt like something was wrong with me. And I would just freak out and be overwhelmed with waves of isolation and desolation and depression, like bad, really bad. And I never really have shared it. Like I don't publicly share this stuff because I always feel like it's for me, you know. I don't need to like there are some things where I just feel like I need to deal with it. You know what I mean? Like it's for me to deal with, and this is my private life. Like I don't need to be sharing with people that I'm like wishing a bus would hit me every day or whatever, you know? So, but once I started taking Prozac, you know, it really like immediately balanced me out. Like I immediately was like, oh, my brain wasn't working right. Like I didn't have the chemicals or something, because I had been going to therapy. I had been exercising. I had been reading Ram Dass. I had been fucking doing all my, spiritual shit, like all this stuff. And I was like, I still am crushingly sad. And my life is beautiful. My life is amazing. Like, why am I being such a little hoe right now? Like constantly. And so when I got on Prozac, what was funny was like all the skills that I had developed with like mindfulness and therapy and like all this stuff, it had like joined up with the Prozac to make me this like a super joyful fucking crazy person, And I'm like, yeah, man. And it's funny because like the whole thing where before the mindfulness stuff, where essentially your brain is a machine that spits out thoughts all day. It's just thoughts, memories, things like reflections, blah, blah, blah. Mindfulness is just observing the thoughts, not feeling the impact of them unless you want to. So you just watch them float away. Here it comes. A memory about this dumb thing I did in the 3rd grade. There it goes. Like a memory of like this cool like thing that's happened to me 20 years ago, or like, oh, I'm a bad person. Oh, that's not true. Like, and so you just watch it, but it never worked because every thought that came out was like, you're total trash. You're trash. You're shit. You're not good at all. And I think that like you kind of just get exhausted. You're like, okay, I got to get on these pills, man. And it's weird because like it helps I can accept everything too. It's like just accepting shit. Just accept it. It's all happening, like whatever. I don't need to change it. I don't need to like make it different. All I can do is control like the little things that are in front of me. I can't control shit. That's it.
Did you find that when you got back into drawing and doing your stuff, did you find that there was any difference, or was it just the bad feeling and the brain was gone?
Well, I'm having way more fun, that's for sure, because I'm like, oh, cool, this is fun. Because I think like the idea in the past was like, I was always sort of subconsciously, if not consciously, seeking chemicals, like a chemical release in my brain. Like I was seeking serotonin or dopamine. I'm like, if I do this art, cool, I'll share it. People will like it. It'll be awesome. Or I'll make a shirt and I'll make some money and that will be validating or whatever. And now I'm just like, oh man, I got to do my best. Yeah. I'm literally like, I just need to do my best, and accepting that not everything is a masterpiece and that everything is fun. And that if you just take a little bit of time and are patient and create space for yourself to kind of, incubate some stuff, you'll be surprised at what you can do. But if you're constantly freaked out about not being relevant or doing good or being accepted or achieving stuff, then you're just going to make bad art anyways, because it's all going to be coming from that place of anxiety and desperation.
That's a very good, insightful message. I totally relate to what you're saying, and in some ways, I kind of feel like I'm one step behind you in kind of like finding the tentacle.
There's the tentacle.
Finding that that system which works consistently best for me.
Yeah,
it's kind of a challenge, but it's inspiring to hear you talk about it. And not to shift pages or anything like that, but like when you are doing stuff like the Halloween marathon hosting, does that just like make you just like feel like so good to like become like this another character and be able to express it with a medium that's been given you?
Oh my God, dude. Like I'm so connected to my child spirit, like when I'm doing that stuff, because I can't believe that I'm getting away with this shit essentially. Like people are like, cool. Like, all right, cool. Somebody's going to be the clown, I'm like, that's me, man. I'll do it. Let me do it, And I think that I've really been thinking that the gift that I do have, besides like just whatever, like making little monsters and shit, is to like make people laugh. And, I think like just kind of like bringing some kind of levity of some kind of like positive stuff to people's lives, like jokes and goofy videos and like being funny and stuff like that. I'm like, this is literally like maybe the best thing that I can do to serve like the public or whatever, by just making humorous content and just being ridiculous. So like doing that was like a double fucking whammy, because Filmbot, they do a lot of these huge like Coachella and all this stuff. And like, so I saw it as an opportunity to like exploit their platform for my own obnoxious desire to be like, to get attention and be funny. And they were like thinking the same thing. And I'm like finding a good relationship where you're both exploiting each other, and it's like you're both grateful that the other person is doing what they're doing is pretty good. And who does not want to be a horror host? Like,
what happened to those guys? It used to be every Friday night you'd have those guys on late night TV, and they were the best. Like you could easily just get that as a regular job. And it would be like we'd all take it for granted.
What about Grandpa Munster? Remember him?
Yeah.
Grandpa Munster was a host, and when I was in Atlanta, because TBS is from Atlanta, Ted Turner,
right.
Ted Turner, and they told me that grandpa dude was like a crazy horny cocaine dude. And I was like, what? And like, they're like, oh yeah, oh my God. They're like, oh yeah, Grandpa Munster, like he was famous in Atlanta for like being this like weird, and I was like, that kind of makes sense if you remember his character and stuff.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it does. I have a funny story. I got hit on once when I was like 14 years old by Mr. Adams.
Really?
My mom took me to Universal Studios when I was like 14 or 15, but I was pretty androgynous back then.
Uh-huh.
And I remember I was walking along, and he walked up to me. It was in the days when they used to share like the cafeteria with the people that visit Universal in the 70s. Yeah. So yeah, the guy, Mr. Adams, I can't remember his real name right now. What's his name?
Gomez.
No, Mr. Adams. He was what's his name? John Aston. John Aston.
Oh, the real one.
Yeah. So yeah, no, he came up and he took me aside, just like, well, didn't you take me aside? What are you doing here today? I'm like, I'm on a tour. It's like, oh, you're on a tour. And I thought it was kind of felt like inappropriate the way he kind of pushed me aside a little bit.
Oh my God.
Thought much about it. And it didn't occur to me until years later, the whole scam with like Hollywood and like the young kids and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. They were like, I think it's funny. Hollywood has, it's a cesspool for the horrendous shit, like that, like, whatever, like kid pedophilia and stuff. But it's funny because people also don't realize that that's just everywhere. Like, you're like, yeah, Hollywood is like there. It's like, but it's also the Catholic Church. It's like cults. It's fucking everything. Like, I think it's kind of been good that any like creepy, horny dude has been like kind of exposed. And
me too.
I think it's good, man. Like, I don't like if you don't think it's good, that's probably because you're fucking doing some shady shit, Yeah,
I mean, finally, times are changing for the better in some ways, and it's hopefully in about 2 weeks' time it'll be even better.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get Trump out of there.
What are you hosting? What's the drop concert?
Do you know who Tim Heidecker is? Tim Heidecker, the comedian guy. Tim and Eric, awesome show, great job. I don't know if you ever got into that. It's very subversive, weird, super weird comedy shit. But so Tim Heidecker has kind of emerged as sort of the comedy savant guy from that duo. And he has a podcast called Office Hours. And there's a guy on there named Doug Lucenhop and another guy named Vic Berger. Are you familiar with Vic Berger? So Vic Berger has gotten famous for making edits of political people and like making them look really dumb and stuff. A lot of Trump shit. I'll send you some links after this. But so Doug Lucenhop is kind of like an extraordinary editor. He's just like a genius editor guy for films and shows. He's like Eric Andre show, Tim and Eric show, all this stuff. He does a lot of his own stuff too. But they have a podcast, and what they do is they do these annoying drops. You know, when you, it's hard to explain and to make it sound cool, but it really is cool. You know, when you're listening to like a radio show and then there's like a weird drop, like, or like, you know, or like, so what they've done is they've created an art form out of drops where they get these weird drops and like, you know, samples from all over the world, like everything. Like if a politician says something dumb, or you know, a musician does something, or if like Joe Rogan says some weird shit, or like Donald Trump, so they or like even random sounds or Three Stooges. And so like they're back there as these sort of sound artist guys. So like while the podcast is going, they'll throw in little drops here and there and like weave them in a way that is fucking funny. It's really funny. Like if Tim, the host, is always like, oh yeah, well, like I have a new movie coming out or whatever. And then like they'll weave in a sample of Tim from like, you know, a year ago, and it will say like, yeah, it's all about me. Everything's about me, you know? And like, so they just, so it's like, they're kind of creating this sort of weird soundscape of commentary on each other through these drops. I know this sounds lame, but
a lot of people on the side here are seemingly know about it.
Oh, they know about it. Okay, cool. So Vic Berger is like really famous for it, and Doug is famous for other stuff. So they kind of came together. And this Ben Levin is a musician, but a bizarre animator, VFX guy. And so what they did was they did a drop concert where it's like sounds and noises, but they're integrating and weaving in drops and noises and sounds and shit. And Ben Levin does the animation on top of it. So he's taking stuff and so it's just like a real mashup. You actually, I think you'd love it. I'll get you a comp link to watch it.
Send me a link. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, and because I actually feel like it's interesting to talk to you after they kind of. First of all, I have no idea. I'm like such a huge fan of them, and I'm like, I have no idea why they've decided to integrate me into their stuff. I'm hoping it's because they think I'm funny, but I'm like, I know it's going to take a little while before they understand. You know, like, hey, I'm funny, guys. You know, they're like, I'll get this dude the fuck out of here. But like, they're letting me moderate it, and I was like, it's funny that they asked me to do this, and then I knew I was going to talk to you because I actually really feel like you're kind of this wizard of what they do, but you've been doing it for so long, and they're kind of like doing it in this other way. And I was like, kind of curious. I want to show it to you to see what you think, because I actually was wondering, like, have you ever done any editing shit where you take somebody's sound, like any kind of speech or something, and then fuck with? Yeah, I totally thought that.
Most of the horror movie samples from in Skinny Puppy, and so
yeah,
that sort of thing was like, you know, creating a new language that had messages that, when flipped around, would mean something else when put into music.
Yeah. Oh fuck, man. I know. It's so fun. It's like sculpting.
So how can we watch this? Or when is that going to be happening?
That is, if you go, so I'm going to be moderating on Friday, and then Sarah Squirm, the super funny, weird comedian, is going to be doing Saturday. It's on, if you go to officehours.com, you should be able to buy a ticket. I'm on the Patreon there. It's like $9 if you're a Patreon member, but I think it's $12, but it's so worth it. It's like, I've watched some of it. It is fucking bizarre, man. And it is so cool. And just, it's kind of like very rare that something hasn't been done before, you know? So it's kind of cool to like see this, you know, thing happen. That's never really, you know, in this format, it's never really happened.
I'm super interested in seeing it, and considering I didn't get a chance to see it at DCon.
I know.
So did you have any announcements that you were going to make at this DCon that you want to make today?
Oh yeah, I guess I'm gonna be releasing some shirts and sweaters with my weird art on them in the next week. I made a bunch of masks. I'm gonna be giving away masks to people that buy some stuff, and yeah, like monster masks and shit. I'll send you some.
I saw them. Were they on your page?
I haven't. I showed some like a couple sweaters on my Instagram stories, but the masks I haven't really shown yet.
The bottle.
Oh yeah, there we go. I still haven't taken those down.
I know those are all sold out.
Yeah, the bottle. I do the bottles. They sell
cool
out.
Idea, man.
Oh, dude, I know.
Getting into bottles.
These bottles are like 150 years old too.
Really?
Yeah, they're vintage. They're like super vintage bottles. So what happens is, since like not everybody can afford a $5,000 painting or something, I'll make a bunch of bottles, and then I will sell them for $100, $200 or whatever, so that people can just kind of collect them and buy them, and it's less toxic than painting toys, that's for sure. So
oh yeah.
And
talk about toys. Some of the I think wasn't one of your toys like voted, the designs that Mutant Vinyl Hardcore took of the Prowess, voted as like one of the top toys of the year a couple of years back? This thing is this thing is stupendous.
Yeah, that was I think that was Sofubi of the year a couple years ago, and then I got I got that award again last year for the fungoid man, that I did with James.
Oh, with Wonder Goblin.
Yeah, so I did it, and it's it's pretty cool, man. Because I like the toys. I love it so much. But of course, like, I don't have a shitload of room, and it's really hard to like, like, I'm like, which one do I like the most? It's really hard. I'm like, shit. And then you kind of like rotate them out. And then I sort of, I'm more of like a book. I'm into books more. But like the toys is like fun because it's like just seeing people be happy about it. Like they just get them and they're all excited. And I kind of like slowed down because my relationship is like how like when things are easy, it's like, all right, cool, I'll do it. But like you don't want to push and force things. So right. Like sometimes when I'm like dealing with, say, somebody who is like in charge of making my toys, like I don't want to like harangue them all the time and be like, dude, send me my toys, motherfucker. I just go, all right, man, like just whenever. And then, so if they come, they come. And if they don't, they don't. But I'm going to paint some here soon. I have a couple. I did like a very soft release of this Wilbur Watley toy that I did. It comes with a little Necronomicon and shit. But that was David Arshosky, the guy that sculpts a lot of those giant monsters that I make. He'll hit me up every once in a while and be like, I need some money. I need $1,000, and I'll be like, all right. So I just PayPal him and I go, all right, sculpt this thing for me. And I'll send him some drawings, or I'll just say like, just make this. And then, yeah, but this thing was digitally sculpted, but it looks fucking sick, dude. Rich is like, he hits home runs all the time, man.
Obviously digitally sculpted from a drawing that you had made. seen somewhere? Or did you exclusively send him a drawing? Something he had in mind, or?
Well, I did a drawing. I did a drawing, and then Rich did I did like one side, and then Rich did the other side, and he kind of just changed up little things here and there, and we had it made. But yeah, he's like a monster. I like that worm thing that he made.
He's doing really well. I also have that orange one you gave me, but it's
the orange crawlers.
In a cabinet down there, you can see.
Yeah, I knew. I was like, oh, by the way, I'm not. If you want to ever, I'm not like one of those guys who gets mad if you like paint stuff too. Like if you want to ever paint,
I love it orange.
I do too, but I just because like a lot of times people will hit me up and be like, do you care if I paint this? I'm like, it's kind of like not in my control, man. It's like it's your toy. but yeah, painting toy. You know what's funny is it's always like kind of discouraging. Like I'm like, oh, I got all my chemicals out, I got all the paints, but once you kind of do it, you're like, oh, this is fun. This is kind of fun.
I got taught by Paul, and that was good because Paul has all sorts of little tricks and stuff, but it made me realize, it's so fun, and like it's a completely different world than what I was used to doing. So it's like it was kind of like almost therapy in the sense.
Yeah.
Hands-on therapy in that sense. And it really, really, really fun.
I love that, man. I love that you're doing that. I think that's so cool.
Thanks a lot. It's really been rewarding in the sense of meeting all the toy people, as I said earlier. They're completely different than the music people.
Oh, yeah.
Common elements that cross over. It's just like you get that same type of passion for people in toys that basically you'll find in music. It's almost like the same at the beginning when we were collecting records.
Yeah, yeah.
Thankfully, I kind of like, when I first got into it, I got crazy. I was like, God, I was spending way too much. And then I had to stop. I was like, okay, simmer down.
Yeah. You got to get, it's like, it's hard because there's so many cool ones and like
so many cool artists. And
every once in, it's like, I'll be like, okay, I really like this bizarre little monster toy somebody made. And then I'll be like, cool, I'll buy that. And then all of a sudden I'll see another one and I'll be like, fuck, I like that one too,
I'll make it up next week.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm like, I'll sell some more bottles. I'll make some more bottles. But yeah, Paul is like he's like an American original, He's he's such a iconic individual. Like even if you just like meet him, you're like, this guy looks like he should be in a Dracula movie or something, You're like, what the fuck? This guy is great. He looks like a Edward Gorey drawing or something,
Yeah.
But
going to Japan with Paul is the most fun thing ever, though.
Oh yeah, they must love him there, huh? They must like.
He's a god there, and it's great to watch the people just like just swarm his booth. But what's the most fun part about going to Japan with Paul is watching him on a shopping spree.
Oh really? He just goes, huh?
Yes, Paul Kaiju, when he's searching for the what do you call them? Vintage stores that he's a vintage guy. He's looking for the vintage stuff.
Yeah, Bullmark and shit.
Excited, man. It's like you'd be like, oh my god! Like, yes.
Oh, you know what? You know what is so cool to like? I think I know a lot more about just like Japanese monster films, but I'm not like I don't know that much about the toys. Like I kind of know like maybe like a layman's amount, but kind of like watching somebody who knows so much about it be excited is such a fun thing. You're like, wow.
I love living through somebody else's excitement or happiness.
Yeah.
Somebody who's happy.
Yeah.
Joke you done, or maybe something you're around. There's nothing better than that, is there?
No, it's beautiful. Sometimes I watch Christy, my wife, like when I don't mess up, the tacos when I cook them and I see her happy and I go, all right, this is good. This is a good time.
Not to change the subject to a weird subject, but have you ever, in the days in Oakland of the ghost ship, was that something that was like pretty much shook up that community, pretty heavy duty, right?
Yeah, the ghost ship fire was like, you know, it's like, it was a little bit like the death of the innocence of Oakland in a lot of ways, because I think that, I think that like in the world, like especially sort of like how tech has commodified and kind of like mercilessly, you know, sucked the soul out of a really cool DIY city like Oakland, you know. There's very few like sort of like rite of passage, tribalistic kind of bohemian gathering places where people can learn and grow and be a part of something. And like as a rite of passage, as like growing into a young person and going somewhere to be joyful and young, that's not regulated by whatever, like a bar environment or something. Like it's off, you know, it's a party spot, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of places like that in Oakland that are like really these beautiful places where people can go and connect. And I had two direct friends that died in those fires. And it was weird because it was like, not just was it that the kind of this started the dominoes falling for like shutting down DIY venues and all this stuff. It was also that like the people that died there were like some of the most just absolutely incredible spirits in Oakland. And then also just like dying from fire and smoke inhalation and stuff. It's like,
for the story.
Yeah. And so it was go ahead. What?
It hurt to hear that story.
Yeah. It was crazy because like everybody was so devastated and everybody was like kind of grieving and we were all sad. But at the same time, landlords essentially were just like kind of freaking out and then kicking everybody out. So it was like these DIY spots emerged and were maintained by the necessity of combating gentrification. But then because this, you know, essentially this situation was not managed by the owner of the building.
Yeah.
So like all these people died because of how unsafe it was and like all this shit. But then essentially it just kind of sped up gentrification because like all these DIY spots got shut down. Everybody who like had a cool place where you go spin music and smoke weed and like, and see each other was over. But, you know what kind of emerged from that, which was crazy, was I had only been in Oakland for a couple of years when that happened, but I had kind of grown to love Oakland so much. Like, and it's like, when I love something or I love a scene, or if I love like a band or a podcast or something, I kind of like am a little shy because I like revere it so much. I love it. I'm like, ooh, I don't want to like interrupt this thing or whatever. So like in Oakland, I didn't feel very entitled. I felt like, oh, I'll just contribute and be respectful and not take up too much space and kind of love everything from afar or whatever. And, but when the ghost ship fires happened, I decided to do this thing called the Skinterview, where I would go to this gallery and I would roll up like hundreds of joints and I would bring like a giant bottle of bourbon, expensive bourbon. And I would interview artists in this gallery and like 80 people would show up, you know, and and I was doing this thing where I was like making people laugh and being ridiculous and like giving away free stuff at the end and like trying to and I was like, you know, I may not be super integrated into this scene in a way where I'm like, you know, directly a part of it, but I was like, I want to do something to alleviate the suffering in some way and bring it together. And I did that a few times and it was really fun and it was chaotic too. And it was like very like a salon of like people just talking and shit. And it was fun to get really shy people kind of wasted and ask them crazy questions. And you know what I mean? Like I was really like fucking it up, you know?
I mean, that was integral in helping the city to rebound, and you're a part of that Oakland. So basically, the vibrance of the city and stuff like that, the artists, bringing it back to life again, bringing it to overcome such a devastating hit. I think that the whole nation was having sentiment for what went down there. So it's good to hear that things are lifted up and headed in a new direction. And man, I'm always so happy to talk to you.
I love talking to you, man. You're the coolest.
I realize we've talked for like a long time now.
That's all right.
The last thing I was going to talk about, Secret Walls is kind of like you come in and you're like got people watching you, and you got pressure going on. Do you like being under pressure like that?
I do like being under pressure like that, but what happens is sometimes I get nervous and I kind of drink too much, and then like I kind of like just don't do good. So what happens is sometimes you have to just like remove yourself from the pressure and just be like, all right, I'm gonna do something, it's gonna be fun, I don't care, whatever. Because honestly, the other artists that I usually battling in Secret Walls are like time-tested, amazing artists who are like capable of crushing me, no problem, So I kind of go, all right, they're gonna finally crush me, I don't, whatever. Let's, we'll have some fun. But I like the pressure.
I thought you killed it.
Oh, that last time I was like being so obnoxious. I was like, yeah, I was yelling. Dude, it's so fun. You got to kind of make it like kind of entertaining, and I also like sometimes you can kind of like sneak in a win by just yelling a lot and getting people to cheer for you.
Okay, let's look at what you drew here.
Okay.
Rest of the chat. Is that a portrait of me?
No, you're way beautiful than this, but I can send this to you in the mail. I'll send this to you.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all right. It's pretty cool. It's got some cool little lines on it.
No, as usual, the line work. Is there a particular brush or type of pen that you like to recommend? Or is it a secret?
No, it's not a secret. I don't care. This brush, this is a Raphael Kolinsky. Shit, let me see here. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Raphael Kolinsky 8408 number 2. Can you see here?
Is that like one that you can't live without? That's the one you go to the store and you feel like you got a Raphael.
Yeah. I also really love these Isabis. I don't know if this this Isabi. So they're very skinny.
It's really firm, right?
Yeah, real skinny, thin. They come very, very fucking thin. Also, I've been using this like old timey ass Shakespeare shit. I don't know if you could see it.
Oh yeah.
It's funny. I'm like dipping it into the oil thing. I'm like, I am the Marquise de Sade. So yeah, it's fun, man. There's all these books.
Pens like ink, black ink pens that you use to draw, or is it?
Yes. Hold on. Here is one that I like. It's brown. It's got like a real thin tip. So this is I'm trying to think. It's all Japanese on here, so I can't really tell. But if you can refill it. So essentially, it emulates an ink brush. So if you're wanting to do that, so like if I need to do like kind of like a quick illustration, this is my go-to. But also, if you want to use sort of like Pigma brushes, this is Sakura. And you could use these, but it kind of, it's like, it sort of depends because there's kind of like a richness that comes with, let me find this other brush pen. There's a richness that comes with just inking, straight up, like on on a canvas with a brush, you know, that people like really respond to. Here is a very common, let me find this. Here's a common, oh, here we go. This brush pen. This is a Pentel. So this is a common brush pen too, this Japanese thing. It's got like a little, you know, a brushy end.
Yeah.
So you can actually get some really good effects with this Pentel. This is a very common, you know, and you buy the refills. But you know, for me, it's, you know, like an artist gets used to their tools, you know, and sometimes I can't do anything unless I have like a brush and ink. And so I use Royal Talons black ink, but for something like this where I ink on top of airbrush painting, I use golden liquid paint here. So this is also for airbrushing, but it's golden liquid, this big ass bottle, and it's very opaque and it flows good. You can add water to it. Here's like a piece that I did with so this is sort of like just like a ton of airbrush, you know, like just airbrushed all these heads, and then I'd go in with paint, and then you kind of you use the liquid paint, acrylic ink paint with the brush on top. I like a Spider-Man.
That's awesome, man.
But yeah, so I just do these.
Some future toys in there.
Yeah, it's fucking fun, man. Okay, and then like so here the other day, can you see this?
Yep.
So the other day I was like listening to a podcast and I was just sort of drawing, and then what I do is I ink the whole outline, and then I'll go in with an airbrush and airbrush the whole thing, kind of like color by numbers. And then I go back in, and then I'll paint with acrylic paint on top, and then I'll airbrush on top of that. So it's like layers and layers and layers. So by the time it's done, it looks like, you know, I really knew what I was doing. But so it's, you know, it's like here's an example. So see how there's some airbrushing over. See on the background, kind of how there's like airbrushed on top of this, and then it kind of spills over. Well, that's because I'm going to take a piece of frisket on top, and then I'm going to take a razor blade, I'm going to cut it, I'm going to pull that off, and then I'm going to airbrush the whole background, and then I'm going to pull the sticker off, and you're going to see it's going to reveal itself. Wow.
Man, you're tops. Look
you're
at that
tops,
guy down
baby.
there.
You're the top.
Look at that guy down there.
Oh, this the little wizard guy.
Look at that guy.
He's like casting spells.
Come on. So good, man.
He's like, ah! But,
absolutely classic.
Thanks, man.
Skinner, thank you so much for sharing today your great talent, your humor, your advice for how to deal with depression and how to be creative and stay creative during COVID. We've answered all those questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I'm really grateful.
I'm really looking forward to drawing with Skinner if it comes back, because I would love to join you on that. So keep me posted, all right?
Oh, dude, I got to get you on there for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll hold you to that.
All right, cool.
Big love to you up there in Oakland, to you and family, and all the
best. Big love to you.
Stay well.
You too, my man.
And to all you Patreon supporters, thank you very much for everything. This is where you find the interviews with cool people like Skinner. All right. See you soon.